Hi, everyone. This is Scarlett Johnson with Moms for Liberty Unplugged. And that video was from a summit in Philadelphia, Moms for Liberty Summit. And those were trans protesters that were outside of our hotel pretty much all day, all night. And it's an example of how insane what we're going to talk about is that we were just moms, just regular moms, many who had brought their kids. Some of them were really little, and that we were protested in that way. It was bizarre. And what became interesting is all the people around us, the police, the hotel staff, everyone we encountered, they were like, I've heard a lot of things about Moms for Liberty, but you're not a hate group. Like, what you're fighting for is normal. We don't want boys in our girls' bathrooms or our girls' locker rooms. We don't want little kids to learn about all of these gender identities and be brainwashed. And we don't want boys in girls' sports. And Title IX is back again. Not that it has gone away over the last 4 years, but it is a huge issue front and center, because the Trump administration and the Department of Education had declared June Title IX month. Title IX was signed on June 23rd, 1972. And that falls in line perfectly with Moms for Liberty, who we have declared June Parental Rights Month, because on June 1st, 1925, a Supreme Court decision affirmed the fundamental right of a parent to direct the education and upbringing of their children over the state. So I am with Kaitlynn Wheeler, and I'm going to just take down this. I always forget to take this down. So Kaitlynn, I'm so excited to talk to you. A young woman, you've been fighting on the front lines of this issue. And I'm going to let you kind of tell your story. If folks don't know, you competed with Riley Gaines. You were on the same team, right?
Yes, we were. Well, I just want to say thank you, Scarlett, and thank you for, of course, your fight and defending the current and the future generations of our country. I think one of the first things I love that I've heard you say is, I love your quote of, I do not co-parent with the government, which for me hits the nail right on the head. And so I feel deeply connected to that, especially when it comes to, of course, the issue of girls' sports, locker rooms, private spaces for women. The government has no business overriding common sense and parental rights. And we both know that this fight is way bigger than just sports or schools. It's about truth. It's about boundaries, and it's about protecting kids from these radical agendas that treat them like political pawns. And the video you played, it's so ironic, this group that claims to be the group of love, inclusion, and tolerance. Well, I would love to play that clip every single time anyone wants to throw one of those words at us, because they are the exact opposite of loving and inclusive and tolerant and accepting. It's the quite opposite effect that I've received when I've gone out to college campuses and shared my story. Any young girl who has, who has had to stand up on this issue has seen that is not the message that they receive from the same group. So I just applaud you and thank you for your stance, and of course, having me on. My journey to this point has, started with my sport. Of course, I grew up swimming, started when I was 4 years old, loved it. I loved the water and the competitive edge in the water and racing. I made it an early goal of mine that I wanted to swim in college and, of course, get to the highest possible level in my sport. And I was fortunate enough to go to the University of Kentucky, where I was teammates with Riley Gaines, who, of course, is kind of, spearheaded the women's sports advocacy issue, and, of course, shared a lot of her story of what we experienced at the 2022 NCAA championships, where we were not only forced to compete against, but change in the locker room with a male. Ironically enough, you mentioned Title IX. This was the same year that they were celebrating at this very meet at the Women's NCAA Championships, the anniversary of Title IX, the 50th anniversary. So it was quite ironic. We walked into the meet and they handed us these T-shirts, and on the backs of it, they said, these very virtuous words, what Title IX, stands for, and, inclusion, fairness, equal opportunity. It was just so ironic that at that very same meet, they were doing quite the opposite of protecting girls and standing up for, the integrity of Title IX. It's absolutely crazy, but that's kind of where I got to this moment. I had a younger sister that was kicked off of her.
How old were you when you were swimming for the University of Kentucky and Leah Thomas, what's his real name?
Will Thomas. Yeah.
How old were you?
I was 20 years old when this happened.
And you never experienced anything like that before, right? You never thought that there would be a biological male putting on a women's swimsuit and shaving his legs and jumping into the pool to swim with you?
Absolutely not. I mean, we had seen videos, we had seen articles come out of him racing and just blowing the girls that he was competing against out of the water. But it was something I was like, oh, we'll never have to face this. It was almost like laughable because it was so crazy, so insane that we were like, of course, the NCAA, is going to see how we see it. It's crazy. They're not going to allow a male to compete. But that's quite the opposite of what they did. They didn't see the unfairness in it. They didn't see the disservice and the complete and utter disregard of every single female athlete. Of course, this meet is one of the fastest meets in the entire country. So to allow this male to compete and win, beating out Olympians, world record holders, Olympians. I mean, it wasn't just by small margins, it was by body lengths. So it was eye-opening to see that on the competition standpoint, but from the locker room, that was something I never in my entire life ever thought I would experience or encounter in a private changing area that is designated specifically for women. It was crazy. I never thought I would experience that.
So you had heard about this, but when had been swimming your whole life. Have you ever heard of, because you're younger than me. I have a daughter your age. I have 4 daughters and 1 son, 5 children. And so my daughters have all competed in sports, or they are currently competing in high school, middle school sports. So this issue really matters to me because it's just not fair and it's not safe. And it's not just this is the hill that I will die on because, and as a woman, the way that they want to erase even the word mother, they want to erase women, and they are treating being a woman as if it's just makeup, it's woman face. You can just decide to be a woman. You can just put on makeup and you're a woman. It's ridiculous. It doesn't make sense. So and I think it's abhorrent that young people like yourself have had to suffer because adults have been they haven't had the courage to fight. And I do think that that's changing, because I think a lot of people, a lot of parents my age just didn't believe it. Just like you, they heard a story here or there, but they didn't actually believe that it could happen to them. But it's happening all over the country. And how, so when when did you decide to speak out? What was your moment? I know your why, but when did you feel like I can't just be on the sidelines? I have to say something.
Well, I think I was very much, naive, I think is the best way to put it. After going through that experience with Leah Thomas at NCAA's, I was naive to think that would be the one-off situation where we would learn from, move on, it would never happen again. But that's not, of course, what we've seen over the past 3 years. A year after that, so this is 2023, around the same time, which is around March, my younger sister, she calls me one day. I can tell she's upset on the other end of the phone. She's 16 years old. She's also a swimmer, swam for my former club team, which practiced at a YMCA. They share the locker rooms, of course, with the YMCA members. She calls me and I'm like, what's going on? And she says, well, I went into practice today to change after practice, and I saw 2 men going in the locker rooms and changing while also watching me and my underage teammates change. And I was, of course, telling her, you need to go tell your coach, you need to go tell the YMCA staff, report this. And she said, of course, is in tears at this point. And she says, I did go tell him, and I did go and report it. And she was told by her coach, of all people, someone who you're supposed to come to whenever you feel unsafe or uncomfortable, at the very least, or just someone to confide in. She was dismissed by him. He told her they in fact knew that this was happening. They knew that these men, these fully grown adult men, I'm talking 50, 60-year-old men, are going in and changing in the girls' locker room, and that there was nothing that they could do about it. And so I was completely outraged by this. Of course, going back to my experience, this is no longer, 18 to 24-year-olds. This is a fully grown adult man and children. That was the moment, I think, the pivotal moment. You talk about what sparked your advocacy. That was the moment, was when it had not only happened to me, but it had now affected my family and someone else that I cared about, and opened my eyes to, I think, the broader, routes of this. It's not just women's sports. It's not just, private areas of undressing. It's women's prisons. It's domestic violence shelters. It's sororities. It's Girl Scouts. Completely insane. But that's really what motivated me to speak up. I knew that there wasn't enough voices out there. Yes.
I'm going to show, actually, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I am going to play. It's just a short speech that you do.
Yes, she is. Hi, everyone. I'm Kaitlynn Wheeler. I'm Abigail's older sister. I just want to thank you all for coming out today to support Abigail and to listen to her story. As I listen to her speak, I try to picture myself in her shoes at 16 years old, and I just can't imagine myself standing up here at that age sharing a vulnerable story with you like that. The bravery, the courage, and the guts it takes to stand up here, I believe, comes from a greater power. Yeah. It's incredibly admirable, and she has deeply inspired me to stand up and share my own story. I recently retired from the sport of swimming. Back in 2022, I competed at the Division I NCAA meet, where many women, including myself, were forced to not only compete against, but change in the same locker room as biological man identifying as Leah Thomas. This was far from an experience to which I felt comfortable or safe. I cannot express the shock and feelings of extreme discomfort that were very real in that locker room when we were forced to share our changing space with a fully grown man. So to find out that now my little sister is going through the same thing is infuriating and disheartening. Riley Gaines, who's a former friend, or is a good friend and former teammate of mine, many of you have probably heard of her, as well as Paula Scanlon, who is here with us today, are still currently fighting for women in this specific issue. She encourages people to take a stand and speak out. We need more people to take a stand. Women have been told to stay silent, but we mustn't stay silent. We must speak and speak loudly.
Great, that awesome, and I love the shirts. Abigail's Army; those are amazing, and I love Paula too. I've been at many events with her. She's great. I love you girls, but I love, because again, like I have 4 daughters. I love that you spoke out and you came and stood up for your sister, and when you realized this, okay, like maybe I can suck it up. I'm in college. This stinks. But then to see that, no, now it's in high school. And now, as you know, it's middle school track, because in Illinois, it's happened all over again. 7th grade boy competing, just smoking all of the girls. That was just a few weeks ago.
Absolutely. I watching that video almost makes me emotional, and seeing myself then, of course, this was, 2 years ago now. Crazy to see, where what was there versus where I am now. I was definitely, obviously very scared, which I'm sure a lot of the girls who are going through this now feel that exact same way, feel that fear of speaking out, feel the fear of being labeled as hateful, bigoted. That was something we were told in college is, you can't say anything, just be loving, be accepting of this person and be respectful. But I realized through all of that you can be loving and you can be respectful, but you can still do those things and still simultaneously tell the truth and stand for what you believe in. And so I also learned that it's not loving to tell someone that they are something that they are not. I'm a Christian. I believe that, God created us in his image and he didn't make a mistake in that. And so I wouldn't lie to someone. That is the opposite of love. It's hateful in my eyes. And so I think this journey really has taught me a lot. It's helped me find my voice. It's helped me become a stronger person, not just in this issue, but in several other issues that I can now firmly stand up for and feel, encouraged by that. That's something I tell girls when they're going through that process that, Riley, Paula, myself have all been through. You are going to come out stronger for this. It's a liberating feeling to stand up for what you believe in, to stand up for truth and to fight for something so much greater than you. Because when you stand up on this issue, you're not just standing up for you or your teammates, you're standing up for an entire movement, an entire generation, and the future of women's sports. It's something that is really special to be a part of. It's unfortunate, of course, that the female athletes are having to do the jobs of our leaders who are failing at their jobs. But it's, of course, been the most effective way. And I've been so inspired. It's inspiring to do what we do and see these young girls, of course, being so brave, like my younger sister was, to stand up and share their stories. So it's a rewarding journey for sure.
I'll tell you, Don't Rock the Boat loses in every history book ever. Don't use my name because I might lose my job or because some people might not like me. Loses in every history book ever. Standing up is what you have to do. We have to stand up against this. And I know what it's like to be afraid. Courage isn't lack of fear. It's moving forward, even though you don't know what's going to happen next and you're full of fear. But I agree with you. One thing that I have learned over these last 5 years is that you won't know how strong you are and how much courage you actually have until you just step out and you do the thing that scares you the most. And what you'll discover is that, listen, I'm sure they'll come after you, name call, put your name in the paper, national news. And then then you're still standing, I'm still standing, you're still standing. And then you have this superpower because you realize, so they're just like keyboard warriors. So maybe they caused me to, I cried because the names that they called it first, but then you get over it. And then you're so strong. And I just can't explain the freedom that comes from standing up and not being controlled by this insanity, but being controlled by something that is wrong.
Absolutely. No, I've definitely felt that in this. And of course, I stay here and I think about, the people who we know that this is a, statistically a 80-20 issue. I think that number is a very more drastic. I think it's a 95-5 issue, and that small 5%, I've been trying to figure out what is it that they don't see that we see. And to me, the people who are still defending this insanity at this point, they don't actually care about women. They don't care about fairness or even the trans community, these people who identify as trans, that they claim to protect, the hill that they're willing to die on. They only care about their own agendas and personal power. And think about it, in order for you to see a boy take a state championship from a deserving girl and still call that progress, you have to care 0% about girls or care 0% about any of it. We know, of course, that this isn't some 50-50 national debate. The data shows and is proven to us that the majority is on our side. They're just, unfortunately, that small majority that are the loudest, the most radical, and the most self-absorbed group. And they're perfectly okay with watching this, watching girls get erased, watching them be sidelined on podiums just to push their worldviews on everyone else. It's not compassion. It's narcissism, and it's disguised as activism.
Yes, I want to share my screen again, because there's another. I want to show because unless less people have forgotten, unless they live under a rock. I'm going to show with Will Thomas. Hold on one second. But it's so obvious, like this tall guy, totally like doesn't pass, is totally a man standing up with all of you. It's so unfair. It's so obvious. You don't have to. I sat through a committee hearing where people on my side were kind of listing their bona fides, like, I'm an MD, I'm this, so I can tell you that there's a difference between men and women. And when I talked to him, like, listen, I'm a mom, and I can tell you there's a difference between men and women, because I have a brain, and I can see, and I can use, reason. And I've raised a boy and I've raised a girl, I'm married to a man. There are differences. It doesn't make one biological sex better than the other, just different. There's things that we do differently. And that's why we have sex separated sports, so that they could be fair, so that women, Title IX was created so that there would be fairness in sports, so that women would have opportunities in sports, so that sports would be funded equitably. And now the same people that supposedly stand for feminism and women's rights don't care about women. They're putting violent men in cells with women. What do they think is going to happen?
Well, I think that's the whole point, is they want to cause chaos. And like you mentioned Title IX, we have to get back to the basics. Title IX wasn't passed to give everyone a shot at every team they feel like joining. It was created to ensure equal opportunity for women, not shared opportunity, equal. That means girls' teams are for girls, girls' scholarships are for girls, and girls' private areas like locker rooms and bathrooms are for girls, period. And if you need a hormone chart and preferred pronouns list and a survey about feelings to decide who qualifies for that, who qualifies for a girls' medal, then I'm sorry, you've gone too far. And I think the American people, they voted on that this past November. We saw that this was one of the most voted on issues this past election. People are fed up with the nonsense. They're fed up with being forced to go along with the charade. But then you mentioned the differences between boys and girls. From my own experience, Leah Thomas, it wasn't a lateral movement. This man was ranked at best in the 400-500ths in his best events in the men's division. Now going from the men's to the women's, he's dominating women by seconds. So of course, this isn't a lateral movement. He didn't go from ranking, top in the men to top in the women. It goes to show you the unfairness. And just seeing him in person, seeing his technique in the water, it was very sloppy. It was very messy. It wasn't pretty to watch. And of course, women, especially at that level, you're working on finite details, your underwaters, your technique, your pull patterns, all of these elements where he was lacking in. And then of course, seeing him in person, changing in the locker room, standing a mere 10 feet from me where I was fully undressed, he comes in, drops his pants, and exposes himself to the entire locker room. Giant feet, giant hands, super tall. I'm 6 feet tall, and he's several inches above me. I had to gaze up at him. It's crazy. And it's crazy for any of these people who say, oh, well, there needs to be more research. No, just take a 5th grade level biology course, and that will tell you, and they'll give you all the answers. There's no more research that needs to be had. There needs to be justice, and there needs to be Title IX reestablished.
So, and I'm sure you have these details down, but for those, you don't have to say, what are the differences? What are the differences in, not just because these are the same things that would apply to track, competitive swimming? What are the advantages that males have to females in competitive?
Well, of course, you know, they talk about hormones. Hormones is something that you can't change, like bone density, larger heart muscles. Men have bigger jaw muscles. They have a bigger throat, so that way they can actually breathe in more air than women can. Their facial structure, like in the USA women's boxing that we saw last year, where two men were allowed to compete. And the women that, you know, forfeited matches against them said, I'd never been punched as hard as I was when I went up against this male, which has recently been proven that these were in fact men. But they have stronger facial muscles. But aside from all of that, hormones, of course, this year with Leah Thomas, they were basing it off of a hormone level. If you fell within 10 nanomoles per liter, which, to put into perspective, is 5 times greater than the highest possible testosterone threshold that a woman can produce naturally without doping. So it was unfair, and that's just to say that a woman is a testosterone threshold. That's insulting to hear as a woman. We are so much greater and so much more than a testosterone threshold. So again, like you mentioned, women's sports, you know, you can't call it women's sports when you're allowing men into them.
And so now this is a hot, big topic right now, AB Hernandez. So I'll because I'm sure you have this. I've watched you on social media. I know that you're outspoken about this. You can understand how the girls feel that are competed against this boy who is just dominating track and field events in California.
Yeah, well, I think just last week in general, you know, we hear people on the left constantly say this isn't really happening, or it's just a handful of cases and a small number of males competing in women's sports. But if you were paying attention last week, you saw exactly what we've been warning about unfolding right before our very eyes. It happened in 5 different states, California, as you mentioned, Oregon, Washington, Minnesota, and Maine, just last week. And that's just the ones that we know of and that have been reported on. Again, this isn't some isolated incident or a one-off case. It's a nationwide crisis. And we're past the point of pretending otherwise. This is real and it's widespread. But for this AB Hernandez in California, he is a male athlete, of course. He took first at the girls' CIF state championships in both the girls' high jump and triple jump, and second in the long jump. So again, this isn't just a stat on the results page. It's a real girls losing real opportunities and a state title that the girl who got second rightfully earned. It's a family who watched their daughter's shot at victory being stolen from her. It's a team who trained all season long just to watch a boy take their place. You know, this isn't inclusion. It's not what inclusivity looks like under the left's ideology. Girls are excluded in their eyes, and this is what they, you know, want, I guess, is to girls to be sidelines and girls to simply exist to validate the feelings and identity of these mentally ill boys.
And now, so for some positive news, I do want to share this clip. And it'll start over again. But these girls refused to get on the podium. And I love it. I love that these girls, when there was a biological male, you know, that was going to win, they just wouldn't do it. And so I know I just put out the post celebrating that we've got, and it's so unfair. It's so much to ask girls. It's so wrong to say you shouldn't run. But frankly, sometimes I wonder if that's let that boy run by himself. Or in California, there were 2 males took first and second place at these track events. And they were like, you know, dancing and like, it makes me very angry. But I mean, for now, as we're waiting for these Title IX solutions, and there's more good news there. But what's your opinion? Because it's so hard to say, well, don't compete. You see that all over social media. Just walk away. Don't even compete. I mean, you've been in their shoes. You train and you want to get scholarships. What do you say to people who say, well, just why are you competing with them?
Of course, it's something that, you know, I've talked a lot about with other advocates like Riley and just trying to figure out what the best strategy is. And boycotting races, boycotting meets and games has been, of course, the most effective way that we've seen draw attention to this issue. You know, girls saying, look, enough is enough. We're not going to go along with the charade. And so we've, you know, of course, encouraged girls to do this, but I will say it's not for everyone. You're going to get the backlash. You're going to get the hate comments on social media. And of course, whenever we talk to girls, we prepare them for this. But it's been encouraging to see the ripple effect, because I think once one girl stands up, it inspires 10 more to do the same. So of course it's not for everyone, but it's been effective. And of course, through this whole process, we've seen other ways to be effective in this. Thankfully, we have a president that's now working with us and not against us. Things were a lot different during the Biden administration. We actually have an administration that is helping us through this and turning things around. But again, it's going to take courage. It's going to take common sense and action from everyone, not just parents, not just athletes. But we need parents to, one, they can file Title IX violation complaints with the Office of Civil Rights. Athletes can, you know, be willing to speak up or sometimes sit out, like we talked about, boycotting, which makes a huge statement. And lawmakers and the legal system need to step up and protect the law as it was written, not activists, not as activists like want it to be, but of course, these states that we're seeing that are exclusively going against President Trump's executive order, we're seeing a lot of pushback on those states, which is really inspiring to see. We need the Department of Justice and Attorney General Bondi to enforce President Trump's executive order that really just upholds the original intent of Title IX. It's nothing new. But there's so many other areas too, like even as simple as, like, I watch the news and I watch these people who are using preferred pronouns or biologically incorrect pronouns. And I just want to tell them, stop it. Don't feed more power into their agenda. We must reclaim our language, because language is very powerful, as I'm sure you well know. We need to reclaim truth and push back unapologetically, because that's what the opposition does very, very well.
Yes, you have to fight back against the language. Don't use the term gender, use the term sex. That's one thing I had to train myself to do, because at first I would say gender, and it's like, now it's always sex. It's male, female, that's it. There's no such thing as gender. And I put up the good news. So the Office of Civil Rights, under the leadership of Hermit Dillon, has sent out a demand letter to California, the California Interscholastic Federation, saying that they are in violation of the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause. And I'm going to read directly from this demand letter. The CIF bylaw 300D requires California public high schools to allow male participation in girls' interscholastic athletics. And that is in direct violation, like I said, of the EPC clause of the 14th Amendment, and knowingly depriving female students of athletic opportunities and benefits on the basis of sex would constitute unconstitutional sex discrimination. And they have until June 9th to become in compliance with current law. And so they're being told their certifications may be sent by electronic mail, and they are due at 950 Pennsylvania Avenue on June 9th. So this is very important, on top of the fact, as I said, that the Secretary of Education, the Office of the Department of Justice, the Office of Civil Rights, and the White House have said they are looking at June as Title IX month. And I hope that this is a really good month with a lot of good news for the girls in America, the girls who are competing, young girls like the daughter of our friend Nicole in Illinois, who were forced to change in front of a biological boy. I mean, not just told to go change, but forced to, as administrators stood by the doors and would not let the girls leave. This is how bad it is. And she's in 7th grade.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. I couldn't imagine being a parent and sending your kid to school And this is, the people that you're entrusting to protect your kids, to teach your kids, to look out for them. This is what they're subjected to in public schools. And honestly, I mean, I was homeschooled all through high school. I don't blame parents for pulling their kids out of schools and homeschooling them. I think COVID was an eye-opening experience for a lot of parents, and realizing what these public schools are actually, not just the way they're treating kids, but what they're teaching kids. They're not teaching, they're indoctrinating kids. And parents, in order to even find out what they're teaching their kids, they had to sue the school districts. And once parents found out, man, a lot of parents pulled their kids out of school. But again, these same people, teachers, public schools, institutions, elected officials, these same people who told us to mask our kids, take an experimental vaccine, and blindly follow government orders, or else, are the exact same ones demanding that we accept these men into our sports, into our bathrooms, into our locker rooms. And when we push back, of course, they're calling us hateful bigots. But the truth is, we know the American people are way smarter than that. They're waking up. I think this past election, we saw that, which was really, truly a breath of fresh air to me, I'm sure to you, and that they're done feeding into the insanity, into the madness, and so am I. So.
No, there's a pattern. First, you will go to a school board meeting and point out, this is the curriculum that my children brought home. This is the paper they were told to do. This is the book that my 6-year-old was read about pronouns, and then forced to sit in a circle and come up with a new pronoun and maybe a preferred name. And you didn't make me aware of this. This violates my religious values and our family's core fundamental beliefs. And they'll say, it's not happening. It's not happening. And when you prove it's happening, they'll say, well, it's only so rare. It hardly ever happens. And then when you prove, oh, it's happening in multiple school districts or in multiple states, they're like, yeah, it's happening and it's good for your kids. Shut up, bigot. It's always the same. It's not happening. It's hardly happening. It's almost 0%. Why are you? And then it's shut up, bigot. We're doing this and it's good for you. And you're going to participate and you're going to celebrate all of the things. And it's all my years, it has always been that pattern. So you just cannot listen. I don't take the advice from crazy people, and I don't listen to people who hate me and who would want my children to suffer. They don't care about your kids. You're the parent, if you're not a parent yet, you have solidarity with your community. You have sisters, you have nieces, you have nephews, so you want to protect them. And this is affecting boys too, as we're seeing in Loudoun County, where middle school boys had to change with a girl who filmed them as they were undressing. And then they are the ones being investigated for Title IX violations. This is the crazy world that we live in. And you can't write it off anymore. You can't look away. I was warning about this, and members of Moms for Liberty have been warning about this, and you have been warning about this for years. And everyone said, oh, it's hardly happening. It's almost never happening. It's a one-up. Like you're exaggerating. You're making things political. No, we're telling the truth. And now, the woke chickens have come home to roost. Thank goodness we have the Trump administration that is working to combat what's happening in blue states. In red states, where you've got a Republican governor and a Republican, state house and state senate, a lot of this is getting dealt with pretty quickly, and I'm here for it. I applaud it. But there are blue states in which there's a real fight happening, and it's not going away.
No, of course. And that's areas in these states, of course, that are pushing back. I talked to hundreds of people from these states who are reaching out saying, look, help, my state isn't allowing us to comply with this executive order to protect our daughters. What do we do? And I would say, of course, these elected officials, the ones who would sell their souls and vote for whatever keeps them in power, they're not going to stand up for justice or equality. They're standing up for themselves. Yeah. And so I think it's important to, of course, make aware the states, these people who live in these states and their elected officials. Are they voting for the Save Women and Girls in Sports Act? Are they voting to protect your daughters, or are they not? So pay attention when you go to the voting polls, or go to the voting polls, vote. I think that's a great first step, but also know who you're voting for and putting in office, because these are the people who are going to be passing pieces of legislation that affect you and your families. And so I would empower parents to, of course, hand the baton of power back to them. We, the people of this country, these people essentially work for us. We're electing them into office. And the majority of these states, even these blue states on this issue, we see the statistics. Their elected officials are not being representative of these states. So the best way we need to help amplify the voices of the people in these states and encourage and empower them to, of course, be a parent, stand up for your kids, go to school board meetings, push back against your school districts. If you're not okay with this, do something about it. I think parents, of course, have been, had their power, I think, taken away from them a little bit, or have been made to believe as though they can't parent their kids, or that they can't make important decisions of how they want their kids to be raised. And I think parents need to be empowered again. And I think we're starting to see that. I love what you do. I love how it has inspired so many other moms, so many other dads, even. I think it's a greater movement. And it all folds together. The sport that the women's sports issue, and this, what you fight for, it all folds together. It's all part of the same root disease, I think. But we're starting to see the tides turn. So it's inspiring for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Trump's election is, we in Wisconsin, which was a battleground state, the polling on this issue was overwhelming, and the number of what we would say shy voters, or voters, your non-traditional voters, the voters that we are really trying, and you work with Turning Point now, so like the voters that you're trying to get out the vote, the non-traditional voters, the ones that don't vote in every election, polling those voters and asking them, one of the reasons why they came out to vote in 2024, these issues were top of the list. I mean, before issues even like immigration and economy, protecting their daughters, fighting this gender ideology that is pervasive in society, protecting children, stopping what's happening in education, saving girls' sports. These are issues that brought particularly a lot of religious voters out. And unfortunately, a lot of religious citizens tend to not vote. And that's something that, I'm definitely trying to change. And a lot of parents weren't voting. And I think the efforts by Turning Point and Moms for Liberty were just so consequential in battleground states, where we brought awareness to communities. We went to there's 72 counties in Wisconsin. We tried to go to every county, no matter how rural, no matter if it's in a big city where, supposedly they don't want to hear our message. That's not true. I'm Hispanic. In the Hispanic community, they don't want this woke crap. They don't want it. So we were able to turn the tide and usher in President Trump. And thank God for that, because I can't even imagine where we would be under Kamala Harris right now. So we just have to continue moving forward. I think a lot of people might think, oh, we did our job. We elected Trump. He's issued those executive orders. No, we still have to fight, because look at the headlines. I mean, this just happened.
Absolutely. I think when it comes to the future, I think the future is bright. I think President Trump has, I think it was so cool after the election. I could just tell the environment. Everyone felt so much more free to express their views on things, even in regards to this issue. 3 years ago, it wasn't popular to say that men don't belong in women's sports. But now it is. The majority of people I talked to, of course, even during that time, I didn't come across a single person that actually agreed that men should be playing in women's sports, and that what was happening was okay. But when I would bring it up to some people, they would immediately get uncomfortable, like visibly. And I could tell that they weren't even comfortable having a conversation about it or even having an opinion on it. But after the election, so many people are comfortable with saying, oh, I don't agree with that. That's crazy. Or just even having an opinion on it. Definitely changed, I think, after the election. People feel the freedom to speak their minds on things. And I think it's been really cool to see that. But again, you don't have to be an athlete or a huge advocate with a big following, or you don't even have to be in politics even. You just have to be brave enough to say out loud what so many people are afraid to stand up for what you believe in. And whether people believe it or not, everyone has a circle of influence. And it just starts by having conversations with those people and starting to, bring up the difficult topics that maybe some people are uncomfortable to talk about. But again, this issue is definitely bright, I think, in the future. And I definitely see it as a winning issue. At least I believe that common sense will prevail in the end. But of course, there's going to be, I'm sure, a long fight till then too.
Yes. And this image I love, this was this weekend. And there's so many more like this where parents, grandparents, and community members are going to track events in Washington State, in California, in Oregon, in Illinois, and they are holding up their signs. They are handing out wristbands. They are doing everything they can to show support for biological girls, for actual females, and to fair play for females. And we want, listen, this is always going to be adjudicated in the courts. And there's some big Supreme Court cases that we've just heard. Scrimeti, the release of that decision is imminent. That's going to have a big impact on this whole issue. There's Montgomery County, Maryland, because you discussed what's happening in schools, and this all starts in the schools. Well, the Supreme Court is going to decide once again, are they going to reaffirm that parents have the fundamental right and responsibility to raise children, or are they going to allow schools to subversively indoctrinate and brainwash kids and talk about concepts that are age inappropriate and that violate a parent's fundamental beliefs? And that decision is going to be extremely monumental for this country. And when you talked about parents, we are all about parent empowerment, and that's why we love working with Turning Point and with the new your Gen Z, the Gen Z group, because we need to empower young people, empower parents, and then start empowering even the little kids. I love seeing middle school kids. And that just happened in Illinois, where young kids are coming up to speak at board meetings, and they're not just the very sad, mentally unwell, teenage trans identifying kids. There are now more and more kids that are siding with Team Sanity, girls that are saying, I don't want to compete against a boy. Please don't make me do this. I don't want to change in front of a boy. I mean, girls, as teenagers, you barely want to change another girl in front of other girls. You're like changing underneath your shirt and stuff. Like having a male in your private spaces is just terrifying for a lot of girls.
Absolutely. No, I saw this picture from Washington. The girls staged this walkout of their school, and they were holding a sign that said, "This is not a walkout. We're not going anywhere." It was so cool. I wish you had the picture, but it's this long banner and it has XX on it. Really so cool that they did this, of course, standing up against, not just their school, but sending a message that this fight isn't over. We're not backing down and we're not going anywhere. That is truly so empowering. It's inspiring to me. But I don't know what school districts are thinking at this point. I don't know if the goal is to completely lose the trust of all parents. I don't know if that's their goal here, but that's what's happening. So I think it would be in the mutual interests of both, the education system and parents to find common ground here, to find a solution, because obviously what's being taught to kids, the way that kids are not being helped, kids who are wanting to have these life-altering changing surgeries, mutilating their bodies, and telling them that it's okay, keeping this information of identifying as a different gender from parents. It's absolutely insane again. And I think the schools need to wake up to this. I feel like if they haven't already, they need to realize it, because eventually parents are going to stop sending their kids to schools. They're going to send them to private schools or finding alternate routes.
And that's already happening. That's already happening. Where there's more homeschooling. School choice is extremely popular. It's growing in popularity. There are states that are enacting more and more. Finally, educational freedom. There's Florida. There's Texas. I believe Oklahoma. There's a lot of states that where, again, there's a majority of conservatives. They're able to pass legislation that is going to empower parents and families so that they can have the ability to opt out of schools and school districts that just won't leave us alone. Just leave the families alone. We're not asking for the public schools to be conservative or to be mega. We're just saying no politics, no religion. And gender ideology is a religion. It operates like a cult in the way. And listen, how young girls are so susceptible to this ideology, unfortunately. I mean, this will be our last topic, because I know I'm in DC right now, and I'm heading to a great event. We're having a press conference with the Education, Linda McMahon will be present, and Sarah Marshall Perry will be there, and we're going to be discussing Title IX and parental rights. And you have an event you have to go to as well. But what do you have to say to girls your age? Because right now, that's what a lot of it. We're really concerned about girls your age, because they have been thoroughly indoctrinated and brainwashed. Their empathy has been weaponized in the worst way. What do you have to say to them?
Well, I would just say, your feelings of being uncomfortable in a locker room, changing with a male, or having to compete against a male, that feeling of unfairness, listen to that, because that gut instinct is right. That's the same experience that I had changing next to a male. I knew that this was right. I knew that every other girl in that locker room felt the exact same way. Listen to your gut. Listen to, what you believe in. Stand up for what you believe in. Of course, it's not always easy, but it's something that you will never, ever, ever regret. Standing up for truth, standing up for your beliefs, that's something that I'll forever be thankful for. And just, if I were to encourage young girls, I would just say to stand up, listen to your gut. And of course, we're here if you need anything. Riley and I love talking with young women and their parents in this journey, of course. But there's a lot of people behind you. The hate that you will receive versus the support is truly 1,000 to 1. And so truly you'll have an army of people behind you.
And that is the same message that I tell parents. You will have an army of moms behind you when you stand up. It's not just Moms for Liberty, although we are the largest grassroots organization centered around parental rights and issues in education and culture. But there's so many other ally groups. And with Turning Point, and we partner with Turning Point all the time. You'll have tens of thousands of people standing with you if you stand up. And my advice to parents is raise strong girls like Kaitlynn, like your parents. I salute them, because they've done a fabulous job raising you and raising strong women in times such as this. In a time such as this, and that's what we say all the time, referring to Esther. These are the times that try a woman's soul, and women are strong, and we are powerful, and we have power in our femininity, and in being a mother, I can't tell you, there isn't anything more empowering and soulful and wonderful and beautiful than being a mother, and that mother-daughter relationship is so great. So moms, raise strong daughters who will stand up and fight for what is right, like Kaitlynn. And I so appreciate you coming on. And I definitely want to do this again when my background isn't of my suitcase and I'm in a hotel room. I hope that we can talk again when when some decisions come out with the Supreme Court. And I think when this deadline passes of June 9th, there's going to be a lot more on what's happening in states like California and Washington, Colorado, Oregon, Illinois, Maine.
Yes, absolutely. There's a lot in the pipeline. And just, again, I want to reiterate how thankful we all are, I think, for you and Moms for Liberty. Of course, the work that you guys have done and are doing and will do. Just thankful for you and glad to have organizations like you guys that work together. I think that's something that the left has done always very, very well, is worked in unison and lockstep with one another. And we're finally taking, I think, a page from their book. That's something that we're learning to do, which is really, really awesome and inspiring. So just thank you so much again, and for having me on.
Thanks for coming in. I've had this on pretty much the whole time. Follow Kaitlynn. Grow her X account. She has great things to say. And if you, and I know you are willing to talk to groups and girls, so they just have to DM you, right? And you could come, you can arrange something and you could come speak and inspire other families and other parents and other girls.
Absolutely. Would love to come to your school or to your college, whatever it looks like, and just help you out along this process.
Well, thank you, Kaitlynn, for coming on, and we'll talk again really soon.
Thank you.
That was amazing. What an amazing young lady. And truly, like I say, like, hats off to her parents. They did a great job. And with Moms for Liberty, we have resources on Title IX that are boundless. And I've been tasked with updating our website, because if you go to our website, we have so much information on Title IX. So if you go to momsforliberty.org, you'll see a plethora of information, and we are going to update that with some of the most recent things that have been happening. You could go to m4lu.org and learn more about gender ideology. We have videos, we have interviews, we have toolkits, so much. If you're interested in starting a chapter in your area, go to momsforliberty.org. And as always, please follow Moms for Liberty on X and all our social media platforms. Super easy. Moms4Liberty. That's our tag. That's our handle on all of our socials. And you will be updated probably more than you want to, because I handle our social media accounts as well as our CEO, Tina Deskovich. And so you will be up to date on what is happening in education, in the arena of parental rights, culture, all of that. And you can always follow me, Scarlett, at Scarlett4Kids. And I talk about these issues and much more. So thank you very much. Thank you all for tuning in. Again, remember, Moms for Liberty, June is Parental Rights Month, and we are celebrating 100 years, the 100-year anniversary of the pivotal and decision Pierce versus the Society of Sisters, again, in which the Supreme Court affirmed what we all know to be true, what is human tradition, it is foundational to common law. It is just a truth. Parents, not governments. Parents have the responsibility and the right to direct the upbringing, the education of their children. We raise children. Children attend schools. They don't belong to them. Glitter families. The only glitter family I want is when my daughter draws a picture of me and she sprinkles some glitter over it. We're her family. There is no substitute for a mother's love. A mother's love is absolute. A father's love is absolute. And so thank you so much for tuning in. And there will be more. Please, I'm airing this after the press conference, so you will see that first. And this has been, we're recording today on Tuesday, June 3rd in the morning. So it's going to be a great day today. Fabulous things are happening. I'm so excited about this press conference in which we are going to officially declare June Parental Rights Month in conjunction with the White House and the Department of Education and the President claiming June as Title IX month. What could be better? Like, these two things go together like peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? So thank you all. Have a well, this is going to air at night, so have a wonderful rest of your night, and tune in, stay tuned. Moms for Liberty Unplugged. The whole concept of this is real conversations, real talk, and on the real issues of the day, on what's happening like right now. School board meetings, talking to influencers, talking to parents, and me just talking with my slideshows. So, all right, have a good day, folks. Bye.